Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax, or maybe just sit back and let's chat about what is happening in the stars above for the week ahead. It's already February, and I just took pity on my neighbor's cat who was outside in the freezing cold and let him in. So if there is chaos behind me this morning between Dude and my cat, Binksy, just know my heart was in the right place. Hopefully, he'll behave himself and not try to pick a fight with her and prove that it is okay to have compassion for our fellow animals. I hope everybody had a great weekend. It was a busy weekend for me. I've been doing a lot of studying on something called solar arcs. And it is a fascinating strategy to use in astrology to help you understand certain things that are happening in your life because it really points almost exactly to the day that things happen. And as you all know, in my own astrology, I didn't see my son's death coming. I didn't see, the election results. And partly the impact was very predictable if I had used solar arcs. And so now I'm hot on this trail of learning all about those. And what a solar arc is the movement of the planets 1 degree forward for every day of your life. So when you are someone who has a lot of planets that the sun is close to, then young in your life, you have the sun coming to those planets, and it drives certain things events that are going on in your life, and that set the stage. And you only have one solar arc to every planet that the sun is moving past in your life. And as well, all the other planets also move to arc with one another. So in my chart, for example, in the sign of Leo, I have Mars at Uranus at 22 degrees, Mars at 24 degrees, my north node at 29 degrees. And if you move those ahead, then it means at 2 years old, Uranus came to my Mars, right? And then at 5 years old, um, or 6 years old, then Mars came to my north node. And those were definitely years in my life with a lot of chaos and a lot of up and down and things happening in my life. And as you get older, of course, you start to see more and more events occur. And it answers so many questions for me about things that happen. And so don't be surprised if I reach out to you at some point and say, let's do this, because if especially if your life is crazy at the moment, if you're having a lot of um, events, and events can be positive. It doesn't have to. They don't always mean that they're negative events, but events of note, right? That might be happening in your life. It might be time for this type of an astrology reading. What are the arcs doing? And of course, it's much deeper than what I can explain right here at the moment. But if you had seen me on Saturday and Sunday with 3 different solar arc books out with several different charts out, you would have thought I was a mad scientist. And indeed, sometimes I am a mad scientist when it comes to looking at all of these different things that we could look at, all the different lenses that we could look at as to what is going on, not only in our own personal lives, but also in the world, because solar arcs work also in the regular charts of places or of other events. So there was that. And then I'm just going to share this with everyone because it is becoming very obvious that these things need to be done. Um, I woke up last Wednesday morning and I had this thought about needing to put together food and supplies for the eventual, I don't know, need in the future. And as things look rockier and rockier in the world, especially here in the USA. I can't speak to what's going on in other countries, but if you're noticing rockiness in your own countries, then it's time to start thinking about things like canning and putting away food, buying supplies, if you will. I'm thinking of myself now as a mini prepper. And it was funny because I immediately spoke with my daughters. We all live, sort of semi close together, and I reached out to them on that morning, and it was so funny because my youngest daughter had already begun doing this, unbeknownst to me, and my other daughter was like, "Heck yeah, let's start doing stuff like that." And, I immediately I purchased mason jars, the 32-ounce mason jars to can foods because I really believe that at some point, irregardless of what's going on with the government, that there, likely will be shortages of things. And, yesterday my daughter went to Costco and Costco was out of toilet paper, like totally out of toilet paper. And she said there were lines of people in cars waiting because there were no parking places. So they sent someone into the store to do some shopping, but there wasn't any place to park, so they were just lined up along the curbs. And of course, things like there are no eggs, there was no toilet paper. And it's that type of thing that I'm seeing happen that really makes me believe it's time for us to start not hoarding. And please don't do this like out of some fear, but prepping for an eventual day when there might not be the things that you can really count on in the grocery stores. So I had even said to my husband, I said, all those beautiful petunias and things that I plant. I said, this year they're going to be things like rosemary. Hey, see, I told you, I let him in and he starts to annoy my cat. Anyway, I was going to start to grow things like onions and celery and herbs and things that I can in pots, tomatoes and things like that. And my daughter's already got onions started, bell peppers started, celery started. I'm like, God, she's so far ahead of me. But that way, we learn to be more self sufficient. And literally, that is the energy of everything that is happening, right? Everything that is happening is about returning us to that more community level, working together in families to support ourselves without looking outside of us for saviors like the government, right? Because the government is totally incapable of saving us. And or may become even more incapable of doing that for us. So I'm just telling you what I'm doing, as sometimes I'm just moving through my life intuitively, not really knowing why it is I'm doing what I'm doing, not needing to necessarily know why it is I'm doing what I'm doing, but that's what I'm doing, right? So take it or leave it. Today and this week is an interesting week astrologically. Today, Mars in retrograde in Cancer comes into a square with Chiron in Aries. That's probably the big news of the week. But there's also Venus, who was conjunct the North Node yesterday, still is in the conjunction today, still, fading, but still there. And then tomorrow she moves out of Pisces, where she's exalted, and into the sign of Aries, which is Mars territory, and Jupiter turns direct. So we have these kind of big things that are happening early in this week that set the tone for the week. And anytime I see Venus, I think of things like resources, money, banking, economy, all of those things that could be hit up and changed by those kinds of transits. And of course, what happened over the weekend, uh, Trump put tariffs on goods coming from Canada. Why Canada? Mexico and China. And I don't know what his design behind the scenes thing idea is, but in the short term, he has really created chaos. And that's being reflected to us also in the astrology. So let's start with Mars retrograde in that square to Chiron, because Chiron has been in Aries. And he's in Aries until I believe it's April of 2026, because I just finished writing the 2026 almanac. And I remember somewhere in that time zone was Chiron's change of signs. And in Aries, this whole energy of self sufficiency is like paramount. It's about finding your identity, it's about knowing who you truly are and recognizing interdependence, which causes us to move more toward independence if you've been in the codependent zone, and moving more toward interdependence if you've been in the independent zone, because we're all in this together, kind of thing, right? And Chiron is our wound. And you have a wound by birth because Chiron is somewhere in your chart, likely Pisces or maybe even Aries. If you're somewhere now around your 50th birthday, likely you have Chiron in Aries and you're facing an Chiron return. And it's a time then for us to bring those deep emotional wounds that we are carrying collectively, but also individually, up to the surface. And as we bring them to the surface, they could be sort of, it's like exposing something to the air, right? Where it can be healed, where it first has to be recognized that it's even there. And then it has to go through the process of healing. And this might be around personal security, around family dynamics at this point. Cancer is the sign that Mars is in, and your ability to assert yourself out in the world, in your life, to be the mistress or master of your own destiny, right? And Mars retrograde in Cancer tends to struggle, especially with direct action. And he is retrograde up until the 23rd of this month. And, there's some probably has been some internalizing of frustration and or reverting to passive aggressive tendencies, both in yourself, but also in the people that you might see around you. And when Mars retrograde in Cancer comes into the square with Aries, it can trigger our core wounds, those wounds that are related to self identity, to courage, and the right to exist on your own terms, doing what you love rather than doing what is expected or accepted by the world around you. So you may see themes of, and have been seeing these themes, by the way, but maybe coming more into some kind of crystallization about feeling blocked or hesitant in taking any kinds of action, like holding yourself back, especially when it relates to something emotional or something to do in the family. You may be revisiting past hurts, especially if they're around things like independence or your personal autonomy, or sometimes people call it sovereignty, or issues of rejection in your life. And of course, we're all struggling possibly with self worth, particularly if past experiences have made you feel unseen or unvalidated, unheard, unrecognized. And this becomes then a call for all of us to work through buried anger and frustration, but doing it in a constructive way. Chiron isn't about just doing things in a way that's hurtful. It's about really looking at the healing process that you need to go through. And just to make this more fun, because it always is fun, right? Eris and the moon and Chiron are all sitting in a conjunction right now today, and they're all involved in the square. It's like they have this huddle up, right? Let me show you the picture of the chart here. Right there, you see Chiron, the K, the moon next to Chiron, Eris next to the moon, and they're all in a conjunction in Aries. And Aries being a sign that is ruled by Mars, we have like matches that are lighting the fires that are going on. So, Moon and Eris conjunct Chiron brings a lot of emotional intensity to this square. And it's heightened by the moon's conjunction, of course, to Chiron. But the moon moves quicker, right? So there's this movement. But even so, with Chiron coming into a conjunction with Eris, there is this very heightened, rebellious energy that's in the mix. And, it feels a little bit immature, like impulsive and impatient, and it potentially stirs up deep seated anger. We can see that happening everywhere. And if you've been feeling unheard or dismissed in your life, this can be coming up in a big way. And then Eris just adds that whole air of discord to the picture. And she pushes for the necessary shakeups that kind of break up the stagnant emotional patterns in our lives and in other people's lives around us. So it's not just you, it's your family, it's your friends, it's your neighbors, it's the people in your community, it's the people in the country you live in. This is all being stirred up. And it can manifest as sudden emotional breakthroughs, right? We might have this breakthrough energy that brings a renewal and a realization of something that is necessary in your life. You may feel an urge to stand up for yourself in a way that you have not done before, right? Standing up for yourself doesn't have to be ugly, it could be courageous, right? It could be finally putting your foot down and saying, I won't be dictated to, or I won't be undersold, I won't be made invisible anymore. So stand up for yourself in a way that is positive and moves your life forward. It could be a big opportunity to reclaim your personal power by acknowledging your wounds and refusing to let them define your actions. Take a look at when it is that you are acting from fear or when you are acting from a place of a pattern that was established in your younger days, primarily in those first 7 to 14 years of your life. And the need for us now is to balance emotional reactivity with conscious healing or responsiveness, right? We talked a lot about that on Friday. It is a big theme in the air, if you will, for the foreseeable future. And so how do we work with all of this very it's cantankerous energy, it's irritable energy, it's confusing energy as well. And you'll see why in a minute because there are other transits that are attempting to smooth all of this out. So things can be very confusing if one minute you're feeling reactive and angry, and then the next minute it's, oh, look at the kitties, right? Hmm. And so we get confused by all this energy. So the way to work with it, number one, is to slow down and reflect. Mars retrograde urges introspection anyway, and he is in the last push of that energy. And, that is introspection before action, right? Before you take that next step. So consider where you might be reacting rather than responding because we all do it somewhere, right? When our buttons get pushed, right? And we go, right? We strike out, we say something we don't mean, or we do something that later we regret, right? So we have to be very willing to watch our reactions, dropping the reactions into something more like responding, which takes time, which means we breathe through it, right? And then we consider consciously what we are going to say or do in response to whatever the challenge is. And embrace vulnerability. This is a powerful time for emotional honesty. And, journaling or talking with someone, a trusted confidant, can really help you stay in your center, right? Staying in your center is so important at this point in time. And avoid power struggles. Don't get drawn in. With Eris in the mix, conflicts can escalate in a heartbeat. So if things get heated, take a step back. Be the grown up, right? Be the person, be that person that says, okay, this is getting too heated. I'm just going to step back and be cool for a minute. And then engage in healing practices in your own life. And that could be breath work, that could be energy work, that could be body based healing work like yoga. And it could be, meditation. It could be any number. It could be going out in nature and walking. Um, but this is a deeply transformative day, and it sets the tone for the week, and it brings both challenge and opportunity. And it's intricately woven with other aspects going on this week. So that's why I kind of feel like it's not just a one and done, that, today you experience the challenge and then it's, over and done with, because Chiron moves slowly. And Mars in retrograde right now is slowing down to station direct. So today he's at 19 degrees. His direct motion in, let's see, 20 days from now is at 17 degrees. So he's not moving far from Chiron throughout this whole time. So the next 3 weeks, I would say, or 20 days at the very least, and longer, because he's going to take time moving forward. And that will be the times this month and on into maybe even early March before we are through with the Chiron and Mars square. Right, the square brings the challenge, but yet the opportunity to grow through these different things. Now, I also said that this could be confusing energy because today there's also a very beautiful energy of Mercury in a trine to Jupiter. And Mercury is in Aquarius, a sign that is about seeing the future. It's about innovation and about seeing what could be, what's next, right? Being able to see ahead and use logic in a very progressive sort of way. And it brings new perspectives and things like that. And then Jupiter in Gemini is in retrograde, at least today. And tomorrow he turns back to direct motion. So it could give us this much needed mental lift that we need, right? In order to see things maybe in a different way. And, that Mars Chiron energy is really kind of heavy. And this is a counterbalance energy because it feels more expansive and it feels visionary, right? It feels like, we can see beyond the chaos in this moment. And, all of this aspect is about big picture thinking, seeing, from the higher perspective. So, what the energy of Mercury trine Jupiter brings us is these are air signs, Aquarius and Gemini. And air signs bring us logic, they bring us innovation, adaptability, and ideas, right? Things that are, in the air, in the stream of consciousness. And the trine between Mercury and Jupiter helps us zoom out and see the possibilities from a different point of view. And maybe something that you've overlooked in this whole chaos comes into view. It also gives us hope in the midst of chaos. And, I don't, uh, I, there's not a lot, when you look out at the world right now, hope is kind of lost on us, right? There's just so much that doesn't look like it's moving in a positive direction. And yet, it must be because the evolution of consciousness is taking us in that newer direction. So there's hope amidst the chaos. While the Mars Chiron square is triggering wounds, Mercury trine Jupiter reminds us that wisdom comes through learning and conversation and optimism and hope, right? There's that word again. So it's also powerful communication in this aspect, spreading knowledge and making connections, clearly expressing truths. It's an ideal transit then for us to, teach, to podcast, to share, to write, to, have discussions with those people around you. And it's innovative problem solving, right? That whole idea of Aquarian energy, which, by the way, has quite a few planets. Remember this? We looked at this, we have Pluto, Mercury, the sun, and that one that looks like a question mark is the goddess Ceres. They're all in Aquarius. So they're all energies that are taking us on a trip forward, right? That are helping us to innovate. So there's a lot of innovative problem solving energy available to us. And if, Mars retrograde in Cancer has stirred up frustration or a feeling of being stuck in your life, then the trine between Mercury and Gemini invites you to search for creative solutions to those problems and, fresh approaches to the way that you've handled things in your life. So, in a way, this is really a balancing point to that Mars square Chiron energy. If Mars Chiron feels like crisis, then Mercury Jupiter offers insight into the bigger picture. Like, how is this serving our collective consciousness? How is this serving our evolution? Right? How is that happening? And if Mars Chiron triggers emotional wounds, Mercury and Jupiter in their trine reminds us that knowledge and perspectives heal, right? Seeing ahead. And if Mars and Chiron's square make you want to retreat and hide, Mercury Jupiter encourages you to open up with having open and frank discussions and sharing of ideas and new perspectives with those around you. So, this aspect of Mercury and Jupiter is really kind of a bridge between the struggles and strife that Mars in the square to Chiron and Moon and Eris, all of that together can bring us, because Mercury and Jupiter remind us to look forward and engage higher wisdom, seeing things again from that higher perspective, even sometimes if that's the hardest thing to do, right? Um, the tension is between the old wounds that we are carrying individually, but also collectively. That's the Mars Chiron square. And the future possibilities of how we might heal those things are held in the Mercury Jupiter trine. So they are kind of working synergistically, even though in the heat of the moment, that's kind of hard to see, right? It's hard to see when those things are really working to your advantage. So it also teaches us how to shift our perspective and to see the challenges as part of a larger story. I almost every day have to remind myself of that because things are so chaotic, right? And um, stay open to new conversations, um, stay open to learning new ways, new ideas, new ways of thinking, rather than shutting down in frustration. Um, this could be breaking point or breakthrough point, right? Either one for us individually, but also outside of us in the collective. All right. Let me say good morning to people I haven't seen. Let's see. Christine, good morning to you. And TD Hawk, good morning. She says, I preserve food and do canning, but eggs, well, my oldest daughter is getting some chickens. And she's going to raise her own chickens. And, I have to say, guys, some things, when we look at uh, not enough eggs, for example, which is likely a product of bird flu that goes and huge flocks of birds having to be destroyed because of flu, it really tells us that we haven't been very good stewards of the earth and her animals, right? If because of greed, most likely, and putting such large numbers of animals together in such small compartments and such small areas, it was just ripe for something like a bird flu to take place and to, rage through a whole flock. It's ugly, right? It's really ugly. It's one of the reasons a long time ago I stopped buying eggs unless they were absolutely free range organic birds. And that makes all the difference because they're not crowded and sitting on, these roosts. They literally have maybe, 8 inches by 8 inches for each bird. How does that bird live? I mean, their whole life is all about just laying eggs, and it's sick. It's wrong. And now we're going to pay for it, right? We're paying for it. And it provides us yet an opportunity to change our consciousness, right? To raise our consciousness and to make certain demands of the marketplace that, and anytime I was in the aisle where the eggs were, I would tell people, you don't want to buy those eggs, right? I know what those people do with those chickens, right? They electrify their fencing, their cages, so that if they step off their nest, they get electrified. And that causes them to, or they get shocked, not electrified, but shocked. So that causes them to stay on their roost and lay more eggs. So I said, I'm not buying eggs from you. And I know that to be true because those people would come to my husband's work to buy the electrical wiring for those hutches. Right? You can't get more truth than that. So I said, okay, I'm not buying from you guys. And I would tell anybody who would listen in the grocery store, you don't want those eggs. And that's the kind of consciousness that we have to raise in ourselves. It's like we know that this, on some level, we knew this was coming, right? Because the growing of animals is not sustainable. It isn't sustainable, and you're just one virus away from decimating flocks, right? So we're bringing more consciousness to this. And we're shifting, right? We're shifting to more consciousness. So, and the other thing about that would be, learning how to care for yourself in the midst of all of this, right? We need eggs, right? We enjoy eggs, whether you're eating the eggs or using them in recipes. Eggs are an important part of our diet for a lot of people. Some people, probably vegans, don't eat eggs, but still, it's an important part of the human food chain. And if we are not stewarding the chickens, the birds, the flocks in a healthy and sustainable way, we're going to pay the price. And so we are, right? It was bound to happen. Okay, so there's that. And Patty, good morning to you. Pam Z, good morning to you. Jamon, good morning to you. Tom, very interesting that moon is void today and the K index is very low. It's low, which means that when the K index is low, more high energy particles can stream into the Earth or all of the planets, not just the Earth, but that means that we're also absorbing more of those high energy particles. When the sun is very active, it kind of moves those other particles away from the Earth. And right now, if the sun is quiet, then more of that comes in. But let's see. Christine, good morning. Even prepare for any type of storm is always a good idea. Yes, exactly. Right. Michelle, good morning to you. Tom says letter D is intermittent. I hit it often whilst I'm listening to you. That's funny. Go, kitty, go. Marianne, was the run on Costco and toilet paper due to tariffs? I just sent my husband to Costco. I have a feeling it was more about that Costco employees were going to go on strike. And I do think that people were thinking that some products, that their prices were going to go through the roof. Think about avocados and things that we get from Mexico, right? The vegetables and the fruits that we get from Mexico during the colder months of the Northern Hemisphere winter, and how much more pricey that's going to be. And then the price of oil, likely, because we import, I don't know, a good chunk of our oil out of Canada. Who knew, right? 10% or so of our oil in the USA comes from Canada. And tariffs, right? I don't know that it's a good idea. I don't know that it's a bad idea, but I do know that a lot of people voted for Trump because they thought he would bring down the prices of eggs and oil. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, because it ain't happening. It's not happening at all. Okay, Teddy, Trump just delayed tariffs for 30 days. Oh, okay. See, he's manipulating. There's something of a manipulation that's going on, and it keeps us off balance, right? It keeps you off balance. I like Nate Petrosky on YouTube. He's a younger homesteader and has a cute dog, Minion. Epic Gardening is a great channel too, right? See, we can all do this in some ways, right? Even if like I don't have a plot of land necessarily that I can go to, but I have a huge deck, and it can probably, if I take away some of my furniture on the deck, I could put plants, growing things in pots on my deck. So boom, there you go. J-Lo, good morning to you. And J-Lo, thank you for that reminder. Please take a moment, everyone, to hit the like button or the share button if you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. If you're watching on Facebook, it's the like and share with other people. Christine Buckingham, how does a natal Mars retrograde impact this? I will come back to that, Christine. Asa, good morning. And Pauline, good morning. And TD Hawk, free range hens have much better lives, but sadly also susceptible, right? So are humans. We're all susceptible to viruses. I'm not saying that if you have free range chickens, they're not going to get a virus, because that's unrealistic. But when you put these factory chicken farms with thousands of chickens all together, you have a much greater risk of a virus decimating your flock. And Catherine, good morning. TD Hawk, True, Christine have watched it in Vet Med, and we've been mourning this whole time. I'm not sure. I must have missed something there. But let me go back to Christine. I think it was her question about how does a natal Mars retrograde impact this? So kind of the wisdom is this. If you have a natal planet in retrograde, whether it's Mercury, Venus, Mars, or the outer planets, there seems to be some sort of lessons to learn, maybe a karmic connection somewhat with the retrograde, right? It's like a redo, a reevaluate, a re-experience. And it gives us opportunities when the planets are retrograde to kind of firm up our issues around that planet. Now, when a planet is retrograde and by transit that same planet goes retrograde, it tends to be a little bit there. You can have more intensity on one side about the lesson that you're here to learn. If Mars is retrograde in your chart, you're likely learning to become more activated and rather than passive aggressive, to become more assertive and to be more courageous and brave in your life and be more self-sustaining and things like that. Um, but you get this opportunity where you kind of get a break, maybe even to see things from a different perspective. And I always notice this. I have Mercury retrograde natally. And during that Mercury retrograde, I don't have as many issues as I have at the end or the beginning of the retrogrades, right? Those wonky periods are the worst for me. The retrograde itself, everything seems to go smoother. And I wonder, right, when I see that, if the lessons are being more integrated during the matching retrograde, and the lessons are being learned either pre-retrograde or post-retrograde, or even at other times in between the cycle, for those of you who have it retrograde. If you don't have it retrograde, suddenly, all of those retrograde issues might be in your face, right? They're in that face. So Christine has Mars retrograde in Capricorn. So, Capricorn is a sign of karma in and of itself, right? Because of its rulership by Saturn. And it might be about how, in past lives, there was maybe too much emphasis on business or on work or on, you know, being a working type person, and that excluded maybe home and family or, more personal living. So in this lifetime, then, Christine, you're bringing it to more of home, looking at it in a different way, being more maybe aware of the need for balance between your outer world self and your living with, family values and with family and that type of thing. So you're very welcome, Christine. Alana, good morning to you. She says, I have Mars conjunct Venus in Cancer. So a lot of the inner energy of your chart, because these are personal planets, Mars and Venus. And when they come together, it's creativity at home in Cancer, right? With family, in settling up roots and a foundation that's strong. And what you would need to watch for, Alana, is likely issues around security and feeling uh, over nurturing, right? Over mothering, I guess is what we could say. And watching for that to be balanced in your life, that setting up of the foundation is for security so that you can go out in the world and do whatever it is that you need to do while not falling into fear and becoming defensive and overprotective and that type of thing. So it's very much creative energy, though. Creative, creative home, creative things around family and how you are interacting with one another. TD Hawk says we've been warning about factory farming causing ill health for the animals via their quality of life and also causing and intensifying viruses. And we're seeing it, right? We're paying the price. I mean, it's karma, and if you don't, when 2020 came along and we had the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter together at 0 Aquarius, one of the biggest issues, and even further back, we could even do when Pluto first moved into Capricorn in 2008, is this idea of being a good steward, that each of us has a responsibility to be a good steward of the environment, of the earth, of our own lives and our own selves and how we interact with nature. And yet there is this persistent energy in the USA, probably around the world as well, of being the dominator of nature, using nature instead of being in balance with nature, living in an out of balance way. For example, doing things. Why are we going to persist in getting more oil from destroying perhaps the Arctic National Refuge when we have alternative sources of energy available to us? One of which could be free energy. It's there. There's no money in it, right? The energy companies can't make money. The oil companies can't make money. The battery companies can't make money if we're not gobbling down the resources, right? And it's kind of sad because the animals pay the price. The earth is paying the price. Our environment will pay the price. You watch with the EPA being undone in this country, your waters are going to end up poisoned. Your your crops in the fields are going to be more pesticide laden. There's no scientists anymore. The only people in there are going to be the ones that live by the party line, right? So there's nobody except you to stand in the way of that kind of disaster, right? So have your own water filters. Grow your own food to the extent that you can. Trade with your neighbors, items. If you have community gardens, we do have one here on Samish Island where I live. And I've often wanted to play in that garden and just never really pushed myself to find the time to do it. But every person living here can have a plot of land in which to garden. And I may do that this year. So there are things we can do in the face of some of the disasters that are likely still ahead of us in terms of the environment and the impact on all of us. So, even though they're taking away things like access to solar credits, solar power credits, I noticed around here there's still a lot of people converting to solar power. It's cheap, it's effective. Even in a climate like ours where there's often clouds, it still is generating electricity. So we have power, right? Don't think that it's horrible what I see happening out there in terms of the planet. But you have the power as a community, as an individual to do things that help us restore balance. Okay, end of that one. Um, yeah, exactly. Exactly, Christine, right? I don't even want to go there. It just makes me sick, some of those things that are happening. And again, I hate being political and I'm trying not to be political, but you are watching disaster unfold minute by minute in this country, and I don't know, I'm sure it's impacting other nations as well. And the only thing that stands between that us and that is us, right? Is individuals, but also as a group. So we have that opportunity. Take responsibility, right? You're not powerless. You are not a victim. And here's the other thing that I see happening that has bothered me. And I don't know about you guys if this bothers you, but where's the Oprah? Where's Michelle Obama? Where are the voices that used to come in and challenge everything that was wrong out there in the world? It's like suddenly everybody has cotton or socks or tape on their mouths or in their mouths. They're not saying a word, right? Where are the people rising up? I mean, there are some, but where are they? And, thinking back in history to the time of Hitler, Hitler was allowed to do what he did because everybody got into fear and shut their mouths. They didn't say, "This is wrong. This isn't right. We won't support that." It's like suddenly everyone is blind and dumb. Dumb as in not speaking, mute. It's really annoying. And, I don't have a big enough voice to reach millions such as an Oprah might or such as a Michelle Obama could. Um, but I do have my voice. I do have my dollars. I do have my vote, and I will use them. I encourage you all to use them as much as you can. Yes, Louis, the cat got their tongues. What? What? And that happened in the time of Hitler, and look what the result of that was, right? Are we going down that same road in this country? Right now, the only thing standing between us and that is us as individuals, right? And as communities bringing this together. And I don't know, I'm just using Oprah as an example. I don't want to get into the he said, but she's been a powerful force of of voice. And we need more powerful voices. We need the voices that could be the counterbalance to the craziness that's happening in our country at this moment in time, in the world at this time. The Nelson Mandela, the the people that have walked that courageous path and used their voices for the good of all. So hopefully we have some people that will step up. And I can tell you that some of the younger people, because I have grandchildren who are sitting in their late teens, 18, 19, 20. I have a 21-year-old granddaughter. They're looking to voices like AOC, and she's a lightning rod, right, for things. And even she has been notably quiet. All right, let's go to Venus entering Aries, because she enters Aries tomorrow. And now we have passion, and we have bold moves, and perhaps an economic firestorm, or maybe one that's just been averted if he's giving a 30-day pass on the tariffs. But Venus is shifting from the dreamy, unstructured Pisces into the fiery, impulsive energy of Aries tomorrow. And that is a major energy shift. Aries doesn't wait, it acts, and often without hesitation. And this placement intensifies themes around money, around banking, around the economy, relationships, values, and self worth. And it sparks a more independent but risk taking, competitive approach. Something that we need the passion. I don't think we need the competition. And I don't think we need go to excessive risk taking, but it's all there. Now, you have to remember that in Pisces, Venus was exalted. This was a situation in a sign where she did really well. And now she's moved into Martian territory. Mars rules Aries. So there's increased volatility with sudden shifts and speculative moves, and markets can become very impulsive, right? You saw the stock market dive in response to the tariffs. My cryptocurrency dove over the weekend, where Bitcoin had been up to 105,000. It's down, where it was down last night to 92,000. I mean, huge drop, right? That's volatility, especially if it starts to go back up, right? And goes down and comes back up and goes down. So we have that volatility with us. And consumer spending, I would expect to also go up in response to these things. For example, wiping out Costco, no pun intended, wiping out Costco's store of toilet paper, right? That kind of thing. The thing that people would be afraid that the stores won't have are the things that people are going to buy. So consumer spending will, go up in that. And, maybe it's a time to be more circumspect about the money that you're spending. We may value speed over strategy during this period of time, right? Quick decisions rather than the long-term planning that's more strategic. And maybe we are focused more on our own personal wealth. And not that that's a bad thing, because I think there's a real need for us to really evaluate our money and where we're spending it. And there might be things more focused on entrepreneurship and independent ventures and started sort of financial projects, whether that's things like, reducing your budget. I'm on a binge right now to pay down all of my credit cards. I've paid 2 off and I'm not reusing them. And I have 2 more that I will pay off. And then I'm going to keep one. I haven't decided which one yet that I will use periodically if necessary or needed. And that's the kind of thinking. That's a strategy, a long-term strategy, but not favored while Venus is moving through Aries for sure. Now, we may have confidence that skyrockets during this period of time, but so does impatience, impulsivity, directness, right? Boldness. Not all of it's bad, but also things that we don't think through completely before we take action on. People want instant gratification in this, especially in love, in finances, creative pursuits, and what have you. And do not forget, Venus moving into Aries tells you she is very close to her retrograde status. And so all of the excesses now might turn into nightmares March 1st or somewhere between March 1st and April 7th. So be very circumspect about how you're spending your money, right? About what you're investing your time, your efforts into. It might be a great time though for relationships if you need the courage to move forward in a relationship. If you're trying to ignite romance in your relationships, there are good things about Venus in Aries. But be mindful of that impulsivity, because that is the difficult part of having this Martian energy that's very available to everybody. Now, Venus in Pisces was flowing, intuitive, and deeply emotional, sensitive, valuing connection and surrender. But Venus in Aries is direct, is independent, is fiery. She values action, she values passion, and she values personal drive, right? Getting forward, getting there. So there's this shift from the soft romance to bold pursuit, and from dreaming of abundance to taking action to get it. Not that I'm saying any of this is bad or wrong, but just note that as of tomorrow, how it is that you're going about doing things of a Venus nature in your life will be far different, right? More exciting, maybe. Definitely more bold. And this strengthens this idea of potential firestorms in the financial sectors, because we're not going on the emotional, go with the flow kind of Venus. We're going to the grab it while it's hot Venus. And that will definitely send, different shock waves at times up and down throughout the markets. And Venus is also conjunct the North Node, Destiny, that has recently moved out of the Aries Libra and into the Pisces Virgo realm. So Venus conjuncted the North Node yesterday and will still be within orb today and tomorrow, even though Venus changes signs. It'll be an out of sign conjunction. And that adds to sort of this destiny driven, faded energy that we might be feeling. And Venus aligning with the North Node in Pisces before she moves into Aries tomorrow really highlights themes of spiritual connection, of divine love, and karmic relationships, reminding us to be still in that vulnerable space and to, surrender to higher love, to be more involved with unconditional love. And the conjunction can bring us some soulful insights about our love, about money or values, perhaps even a call to release illusions that we have held on to about ourselves in relationships, or even the attachments that we have that no longer serve us, right? That are old baggage. Let them go. And it can be a moment of alignment with higher destiny in matters of the heart, in matters of money or wealth or resources, before Venus steps boldly into Aries energy. Now, the shift from Pisces, surrender, dreaming, and flowing, to Aries, the bold, gotta go get it, self determining, initiating energy, suggests that there's this turning point in our relationships, turning point in our finances and our self worth, in the resources of which you are your best resource. So maybe you will be feeling compelled to take action in some way, on something that you've been divinely guided or inspired to do, but have held yourself back from doing. Um, the continuing conjunction, even when Venus moves into Aries, suggests there's this stepping stone moment, that choices made now have long term consequences for you personally, but also, for us collectively. So, Venus North Node in Pisces really seems to be a final whisper of destiny from Venus as she moves into Aries, inviting us to move along, right? To move more boldly. And the Mars Chiron square, right, that we talked about first this morning, inner wounds that may push us to claim our personal sovereignty, to really claim your path forward. The Mercury trine Jupiter in all of this, the higher mind supports seeing the why these shifts matter and how they play into the bigger story. And Jupiter moving direct, which we haven't really talked too much about yet, but Jupiter moves direct tomorrow as well, which where we have expansion resuming, where doors start opening where they've been sort of closed for us for the last 4 months while Jupiter was in retrograde motion. So what we have is sort of a rare alignment this week, between surrender and initiation, right? Letting things go and being more spiritual, but also becoming more activated and more movement oriented. And just really quickly, with Jupiter turning direct in Gemini, we have momentum that returns in terms of growth and more clarity, perhaps, about what the next steps should be, or that the next steps that we want to take. Where is our forward movement going to take us? Where are we going? And don't be surprised if you have big ideas or breakthroughs after tomorrow. Don't be surprised if there's this information boom that starts to happen. Expect major news, expect communication shifts, expect fast moving media cycles, right? Where the spinning of stories, right? New opportunities opening up for you, more social, more connected, networking, collaboration, all of those energies that are coming at us. Remember, this is the same week in human design where the earth is grounding us in collaboration while allowing us to see our old stories. The gate 13 in your human design activated through the 6th, about what is your story? What are you telling yourself? So if you've been waiting for clarity on something big, this is your green light, right? Tomorrow. It's a fantastic time for writing, for speaking, for marketing, or launching ideas. Maybe that dream time is beginning to shift into action time, and expect a lot of new information flooding in. Stay adaptable and stay open to change, and that will carry you through, hopefully, with some peace in your heart. And remember, love is always the antidote to fear, right? Love is the answer, always is. Okay, let's see here. Oh, Lewis, we're moving into a 2838 culture. I'm not sure that we are moving into it so much as we've been planted in it. The 2838, for those of you who don't know, is the channel of struggle. And it is also a channel that mutates the collective because we're struggling for those things that make sense, right? That hold some bang for our buck, if you will. And we're entering a new world where everything that has been built will be tested by spiritual foundations as we leave the cross of planning into the cross of the phoenix. So funny, Lewis, because I took my book off the shelf yesterday. And, I don't know how many of you are really good at understanding astrology and human design, but this is a great one to read. The Quantum Human, Understanding the Evolution of Consciousness, the Solar Plexus Mutation, and Human Design. Karen Curry Parker wrote this book a while back. And of course, I got it right away and read it from cover to cover because it's really all about the upcoming evolutionary leap in our human design. So thank you, Lewis, for bringing that up. And all right. I think that's it for us today. Let me draw a card. I just feel like we need some kind of let's draw a Pleiadian one. Let's draw a Pleiadian card. And by the way, Pia and Cullen will be with me earlier this month because they are out of town on the 21st, which would be our normal week. So they would be with me next Friday, the Valentine's Day, I believe it is, to talk to us about whatever it is that comes up. And here's what comes up this morning. 13, purpose. Remember, to achieve your purpose, you must simply remember who you are. So here we have this beautiful card, which is a heart with so much light around it, right? And it's the card 13. 13 in the Pleiadian calendar is a symbol of ascension, moving to the next level, right? Our collective consciousness moving to the next level. And our purpose here is to remember. So let me find this here. It's not evolution, it's purpose. Purpose. There we go. So it says, to achieve your purpose, you must simply remember who you are. You are a being of love and light. You are not simply the pattern of thoughts and behaviors that you have accumulated through all of your earthly experiences, contributing to who you think you are. Remembering who you are is paramount in realizing that you have brought all your wisdom and knowledge from other dimensional experiences into this current life. It requires releasing all old belief systems and dysfunctional behaviors and living in the present moment, connecting to whatever energy is present and taking responsibility to engage through conscious thoughts and actions in everything you think, say, and do. You must make choices from your heart in every moment to achieve your purpose of remembering who you are. And the universal energy 13 is the number of integration. When you integrate all of your experiences through a higher cosmic perspective, it is easier to achieve your purpose of manifesting your future self through remembering who you are. It's a great card. Great card in light of everything that we've talked about this morning. All right, guys, that is it for me today. I will see you on Friday. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.